you ready?
Did it. He said the word. The funny word.
Hell yeah. Wait, what's funny about it? Racist?
I don't know.
No. Howdy gamers.
Craftsdwarf really decided to take a page out of Vindy's book. Insane.
Yeah, I can't believe it. Alright. New Weeb Club. Comments.
Yeah.
420, by the way. 420 special. It's 420 today. Gamers.
I literally do not fucking care.
You don't care about what?
420.
You don't care about the fans?
What?
Oh, okay. Well, we started comments, and then you said I literally don't care.
About 420.
We're talking
Sorry.
about Vindy.
No, I do care about Vindy. He's my friend, even if he's dying because he decided to take a hit on the podcast.
No. It's, dude. Just because it was 420. It's fine. 420, you have to.
Are you fine? Are you? I'm keeping all that in.
What was the comment I wanted to say? Oh, thank God you didn't let the Patreon Gremlins pick, because you know for a fact you'd be watching Mashle, Jigoku Raku, or Orient Season 3 instead. First of all, Orient Season 3 wouldn't be available for the poll because
we don't do
we
sequels,
only allowed Season 1s, so L on that. But second of all, I love the patrons, so I don't actually want to shit on y'all. But third of all, I don't know if Oshinoko would have won the poll. And I'm glad that we're talking about that because it's a banger.
I mean, I don't... Because, like, what I remember going back and looking, and consistently everything that won the poll was always the most watched show of the season that wasn't a sequel, basically. And I'm pretty... I mean, is Oshinoko the most watched show? Let me check.
It's definitely the most talked about, but what I would worry about, and here's the thing that I think is fair to say about like the patrons sometimes, is because the poll took place beforehand, like Oshinoko became the most watched now after the first episode came out, and everyone's like, hey, this is like the greatest thing I've ever seen. And like, you know, it's good, and so everyone started watching it, but there's no telling that like, you know, if people were voting beforehand and they didn't realize it was going to be that good because, you know, people like to sleep on Doga Kobo. Like, they literally haven't been the GOATs spitting out bangers for, like, a decade now or more, right? Like, what, it's 2023, and they've been... Okay, we'll get into it later. But, like, you know, I don't know. Like, there is a chance, I think, that it wouldn't have been picked.
I'm looking at...
I think it would have been close, but like I do think some people are kind of aware a little bit, but I don't think it would have like easily won. Like, I could see like Mashle winning.
Like I don't think there was a lot of hype for the show before, you know, the first episode came out, and it was like, oh my god, everyone watched this.
No, I guess like because like Jigoku Raku is actually fairly close to popularity to Oshinoko on Mal, which you know only says so much, but like. The fact that I don't know, I feel like the fact that they're so close, even though Jigoku Raku had a week before. I mean, I guess, you know, it did have a week beforehand, but, you know, it's...
Nobody talked about Jigoku Raku's first episode the way people talked about it.
I don't know anything about Jigoku Raku, so...
What's your metric for almost as popular as
he's looking at the people who have it listed on
so
Mal.
it is 14K lower, but there's nothing else. Like, the only... Like, Kimetsu is higher than Oshinoko, and nothing else even hits 200 or no except for Dr. Stone has like 200K and nothing else has 200K.
Yeah, and here's what I'll say about this.
There's a pretty clear hierarchy.
Really quickly is just that like Jigoku Raku was the Mappa jump adaptation, so like that was already gonna have a lot of hype going into it beforehand, and I don't think Oshinoko was as like Oshinoko definitely got way more viewers from people talking about the first episode than like Jigoku Raku got viewers from people talking about its first episode, if that makes sense.
And
So it would make a lot of sense for
Jigoku
Jigoku to have been ahead if you like think back like 2-3 weeks. It's just that Oshinoko's first episode got people talking so much that then the number jumped like way the fuck up, you know?
Yeah, and then Mashal, I think I can also understand that of being picked, especially because like I feel like with this podcast specifically, we have such a a history with talking about like recent Shonen Jump stuff that like in regards to our audience being relatively small and focused on that, like because I think about Mashal, it's like obviously like Ayakashi Triangle definitely came first, but Mashal, I liked more from the start, so it's like just for me it's like, oh shit, like the stuff that I was reading as it was coming out is now real, right? Like that kind of feeling as an anime in that sense.
I also feel like Mashley, it's still adapting the stuff that people that
nice banger. I like the deep cut.
That?
I love the deep cut.
Before it went to, I mean, like before it got to the stuff that people have been complaining about and not as into. So it's like, I think season 1 had a good shot.
I also think the other thing that, like, to be fair with Mashley, is that I think that it reminds people, at least it reminds me, because it started, and so like what the anime would cover is like what I covered when I was doing like the weekly like chapter reviews, when like the Weeb Club was starting and like we were all making content. So it was like, like the best period of the Weeb Club in terms of like output was that. So I could see people voting for it for that, being like, missing the old days. But fuck that.
Oshinoko.
Yeah. We were always just Dogakobo stans, not even in disguise, outwardly. They slapped again. They always slap. They do not miss. They're the GOATs. It is what it is.
Yeah, most of the comments were also talking about Oshinoko, so, that's how it is. Though I'm not sure if I want to specifically bring any up, because I don't know.
I mean, I hinted at the spoon comment, but I did it in like the most spoon way, where like to truly honor Spoon in his comment, I read it and then just ripped off what he said into the podcast. You know what I mean? I thought I would like truly pay homage to him with this comment. So, and there was nothing on the Reddit.
No, there was not a single post at all. So,
it is what it
we'll
is.
Leave it there. All right, topic. It's a patron topic, so let me pull that up. Actually,
I can read it.
Oh, go ahead then.
So it's from Titania, and its topic idea is how to watch media to enjoy it and control expectations. In the past, I used to rank series by the least amount of arbitrary mistakes I had in my mind. Something that was either bad or misguided. Now I try to take the good with the bad and focus on how the piece of media impacts me rather than some arbitrary score. When I want to like something, I try to lower my expectations as much as possible. Also, I've stopped comparing media to one another, saying one is better than the other, unless it's just to point out the similarity, but not saying one is better than the other. When some critics put down a series to praise another is the most annoying thing ever. Most of the positive changes have come from Craftsdwarf and the Weeb Club members. For that, thank you. I hope the topic is interesting, and if not, sorry. Have a wonderful time. So, like, I guess to like summarize what I think about it is just like, first of all, is like, how do you like watch stuff to like enjoy it over like how we talk about sometimes it seems like people watch stuff to shit on it. And then like controlling expectations, I think is like an interesting secondary part of that, but is also I think they can be related.
No, yeah. Well, I mean, my thought, because I thought I've been thinking of lately is because something I'll talk about for the backlog rotations later, probably is it was fine. It wasn't great, but I was even thinking about how like I still got stuff from it, and I was thinking about how one thing I think of when going into a series isn't necessary, or anything really isn't necessarily like I'm gonna love this or I hope I get something out of it. It's also just like I'm looking for stuff that I can use creatively, if that makes sense. Like, part of that, has been historically like something interesting to make a video about, or, and recently I've been getting into more creative, like, I know I want to do videos, but honestly, what's kind of taking up a lot of my time is creative writing stuff. Like, I started a group role play, and I've been, continuing my Hunter x Hunter fan fiction and stuff. So it's like, so sometimes when I go into things, and I notice a connection to something that I'm doing, basically.
Craftsdwarf, you're great.
Oh,
I'm sorry to cut you off. I'll explain what I mean by that.
I love Craftsdwarf too. He's great. I agree.
Okay. And I also finished, like, I fucking did, like, a Danganronpa, an epilogue to my Danganronpa trilogy. That is, like, you know, because I was talking to Mathwas about it, and I realized I could add stuff to the story. Whatever. I finished that this year too. So that's why I haven't done any videos. I literally have a finished script and, like, a partly clip, and I really want to do the Wanna video, and I want to do but I have other stuff I'm interested in, and so, like. So yeah, that's one thing is when I'm watching something, like, I had an idea where I was out watching Overlord and Ainz is drinking red wine, and I that, which I feel like is kind of a common thing because it's associated with, like, blood, and I thought, well, what would white wine symbolize? And I was like, so I just literally jotted that down, and that might be a scene or part of a scene that I use somewhere in regards to, like, you know, contrasting, you know, because food is an easy way to, or, you know, it's a simple way to, you know, I guess add symbols to scenes, if that makes sense. You know, coffee, bitterness, you know, that's an easy one, for example. So, you know, but I feel like I personally have never seen white wine used when red wine is so common, right? Like, oh, the vampire is drinking red wine. What do you, or in Aikatsu, it's actually tomato juice, but you know. So yeah, that was just, you know, and that's just like a random little detail that really doesn't matter, but it gave me a thought, and that could be a little part of a scene, you know. So yeah.
What I like about what you just said is just the fact that, like, with fan fiction, you know, there's not that much of an audience for people to be reading that, and I feel like if some random fan fiction guy got like 30K on YouTube, they would just focus on YouTube. But, like, I like how you know, even though it's not as much attention being drawn to it and there's not that, like, instant gratification, you still are writing fan fiction and are still, like, more interested in that because it's, like, more fun. And I wish I could be that way.
I mean, for
that's
me,
just base.
A big part of it is, like, because I realized this, like, even as a kid, I've always liked my ideas or I've always been drawn to a derivative, like, things. Like, I did a Super Smash Brothers comic. It, like, that I drew a whole you know, basically a comic where I had other characters from the franchises fighting, and you know, whatever, and then, like, I'd insert myself into, like, Yu-Gi-Oh and other things as a original character, and eventually that sort of evolved into roleplay. And, you know, so what ends up happening is I just get this story, you know, derivative of some other series that I, like, have to fucking tell. And, you know, so that's really it. And that's, like, you know, obviously I think, I've gotten a lot out of YouTube and stuff.
That's so fucking cool. You're so cool, Craftsdwarf. You're my idol.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and it's like, cause
they should have made Oshinoko about you.
Oh, God. So you're gonna kill me off? Is that what you're saying? Okay, and I'm gonna have twins, and oh God, you're gonna become the twins! No!
Oh my God!
Fuck! I lost my train of thought. So, oh no, I was gonna say just how, and, like, another thing, because I think I talked to you about it, Nun. It might have even been on the Weeb clip, but you were talking about how, like, you're interested in doing, like, art and other stuff, and what I pointed out to you is how, like, even if it doesn't, you know, come to anything in itself, like, the fact that you worked on it can build into other things that you do, which, so, like, me writing fan fiction helped when I did my channel, because I thought of things creatively differently, because I'd made a long form creative story. Like, how many YouTubers, you know, who do analysis videos can say, yeah, I have a fucking trilogy that's, you know, 750,000 words long. Like, you know, that's probably relatively uncommon, right? You know, and then, but then it's kind of gone full circle where I'm using my readings of these stories to feed into my fan fiction, you know, like with my Hunter x Hunter fanfic. One thing I'm trying to do is have the endings of the arcs be, like, anticlimactic in some sense, because it kind of gets at the, you know, the journey is more important than the destination, right? Because, like, the destination is this anticlimactic, you know, happening. So, like, what goes into that is, you know, more important. So, like, that's just a way that a reading of Hunter x Hunter has helped, or, you know, affected how I'm writing a story that's derivative of it, even though I think I'm doing a lot of crazy fucking shit, honestly. Like, I really want this story to be real. But anyway, that's a little off topic, but yeah.
No, I actually enjoyed listening to you talk about that. I
agree. It was a nice tangent.
Okay,
so I think to try to just, hard pivot back to the topic. One thing for me, like, when I try to think about, like, going into things to enjoy it, like, the first thing is, like, you have to have that noticeable mindset shift that, like, at least for me, it's like, I don't go into things, like, trying to be critical anymore. I don't care. I'm just, like, going into things with, like, my basic mindset, and I'm trying to, like, be charitable and, like, ask why a lot when I, like, watch something. It's like, I try to think about it, and then always, like, like we talk about it when it comes to, like, Naruto or other series where there's, like, people will have different takes, and it's like one take is, like, kind of dog shit and the other one, like, makes it look a lot better. It's like, always try to just be charitable to a series. If you hear, like, an interpretation that, like, isn't too much of a stretch, that sounds like it, like, could kind of makes a good amount of sense, and is, like, charitable and, like, doesn't, like, have any noticeable huge flaws, try to just, like, accept that one. Like, be willing to accept that you're wrong. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's wrong about shit. I'm wrong about shit all the time. You know?
Yeah, I feel like one of the
damn it, sorry, I went like, and it's like, yeah, Vindy, you're wrong all the time. Like, no, I didn't mean it like that.
I think one of the big things that people have to keep in mind is just that, like, it's simply just because you didn't like the thing doesn't mean, like if you watch something, right, and you had a problem with it, it doesn't just automatically mean that you're right about it and that your interpretation is the correct one just because you had that negative reaction. Like, if I'm explaining, like, why I wasn't that into, okay, so today, right, later when we talk about Oshi no Ko, there's, like, a little thing that, like, I'm going to mention that I'm not, like, super into from this second episode, but I don't at all think, like, I'm just right about that, or, like, there's any fault of Oshi no Ko. It's just something that, like, it didn't land for me specifically, and it's something that I'm, like, questioning a little bit, but, like, I'm sure it'll be fine. Well, I'm pretty sure it'll be fine in the future, especially because, like, the first episode was really good, and I, like, I have faith in the series because it's already proven itself to me, I think.
Well, and what you reminded me of is because, like, I've heard people, like, at least one person say, like, oh, I've had this criticism and no one's been able to counter me on it. And I'm like, nobody fucking cares. Like, why are you up on your high horse? Like, okay, you said something that people don't disagree with. Go, okay? Who gives a shit? No one has to give a shit. Like I think, shit. Like, one of the things I've mentioned how I don't respect criticism, and one of the reasons is because, like, I think people value it a lot, maybe even too much, I think, even though a lot of it honestly comes from this place of, like, I want this work to sell and make money. Because, like, when you think about a lot of, one example is, like, diversity, where it's like, is it right to criticize, like, Hollywood or big studios for having a lot of, white leadership? Absolutely. But, I also think that, like, well, maybe, the diversity that Japanese anime, and I don't know why I said Japanese anime, needs is, like, because I remember, I think it was Pause and Select just pointed out how, like, yeah, there's not a lot of Yamato or it's mostly Yamato Japanese, not a lot of, Ainu or Okinawan Japanese characters at all. And I'm like, oh shit, that's a good fucking point. Like, people who are saying, we need more black anime characters, if on anything, they're disproportionate relative to the actual population of Japan, but then, like, there's just, and I just think of, like, okay, why do we need a work to be more diverse and have more colors of character or whatever? Or, well, because it'll sell better. Like, that's the idea, I guess, a part of it, I think, especially when you get companies doing that kind of thing, like Disney having these easily removable, like in Onward, there was the one cop lady who has a call with her wife, and it's like, yeah, they did that because in China they could just dub over it and just change what she says and make her not gay anymore.
Yeah,
like,
it's not included for, like, a meaningful artistic vision kind of thing of, like, this character, for having this identity, is like, it means something to the character, even if it's like a small detail. Whereas with, like, the example you used, it doesn't really seem like it's meaningful to the character.
That in itself can be fine, I think, because, like, like, one thing Mathwiz got out of Wano with One Piece was how, like, Yamato and Kiku are just kind of, like, trans, and that's kind of it. Like, it's not, like, it would have been easy for Oda to have, like, Kaido misgendering Yamato because he's literally objectifying him and, trying to turn him into something he's not. But that's actually, like, the one area that Kaido just doesn't give a shit with Yamato. Like, he'll just say, yeah, he's my son. I don't like how he's trying to emulate Odin, and also I'm gonna force him to be the Shogun of Wano. But like, but he just doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I have like a couple. Like, I actually, for once, like had some bullet points about this topic because I was thinking about it a little bit. I don't think I should just run through all of them.
Hit me with some of yours because I have some too. So you hit me with some of yours, and then I have some of mine. And if Crafts has any, but
so I mean, the first one that I wrote down was just kind of like you could do like the more mechanical approach of like, researching the thing before you get into it, which isn't like the most fun thing to do, especially depending on what it is. Like, if it's just some random like OVA that nobody's actually like seen or written up about, or like doesn't have like this big impact on the anime industry or anything, then it's probably not fun to like research it, because then you're just gonna like kind of like read the summary about it, maybe like the director said something about it one time or something, and that's it. Yeah. But I mean, I do think depending on what it is, it could be fun and maybe fulfilling depending on like who you are. Like, an example I would use is like maybe Ava, where like it's such a big series to where if you've never experienced it, you've probably been like kind of spoiled on it anyway. So maybe kind of learning about it before you go into it could be fun and fulfilling, especially with like there's a lot of history with Anno and a lot of like kind of interesting things you could keep in mind while watching it. So that is like one possible way you could go into something and like enjoy it in a different kind of way. I would really only do it for like very specific things though.
I feel
and maybe like a potential rewatch would be the more better like approach for like a research kind of thing.
I'm definitely a bigger fan of the idea of researching stuff that like you already enjoy. Like, I think like, kind of what you've been doing, I assume, with like Code Geass, where like it's kind of become this like hyperfixation of yours, and so you've started to like really research it and get into it and get into all these little aspects. I think like that's what's better saved for like researching stuff, as opposed to just like before you go into particularly any little thing. I think, if you want to do it for something specifically, like, obviously go for it. And I see what you're saying.
I do think it's a very case by case thing.
Saving it, like researching stuff that like you've already seen and you get really into, and then maybe you research it and go through it again specifically with all the research in mind, definitely is something that like is really fun, as like an interesting way to go through it. In terms of the second part, like the setting expectations, I have like one thing, which is like, this is super personal for me, and I could see how this doesn't affect everyone. But I was thinking about it, and I think that like not doing number scores for me really helped me like temper my expectations for everything.
Okay.
And also raise them, because like I don't think about, so I think like one way to phrase it is that like if you were scoring something on a scale and you just kind of like something, you kind of give it a 7 maybe, right? But like that means that you're always thinking about the fact that there is in theory a 9 or a 10, right? But like not to say I'm just better, but like that was at least kind of how it was for me when you rate something with numbers, versus now I go into something and I just like, I hope I like it, and if I like it, I like it. But then when something's like really good and it like goes way past like I like it and I really get into it and I love it, and you know what I mean, like it becomes like a favorite or something, that like is a lot different, because I don't think about everything. Like I would just kind of give the same blunt answer for most things that I've consumed recently that I enjoyed, even though there's like a massive difference in terms of like how much I would probably rate a lot of them. Like they would not rate the same. I would just end up telling you like I liked it, except for the stuff that would land really highly. But because of that, like everything from like a 6 to like an 8 kind of fall into the same category to like a 9. And because of that, the stuff that's like a 6 and a 7 doesn't feel like, it was like, I wish it was so much more. It's just like, I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it, and I can like move on. You know what I mean? I don't have to like compare it to other things and think about what it could be more than. I could just look at it as its own thing. It's like, did I like it or did I love it? I just kind of liked it, whatever. And I can move on. And there doesn't have to like be the scale I'm holding it to. Which helps me. I don't know if it would help everyone, but
Another thing that I think that people should do is kind of sort of which it's similar to like the research kind of thing, but not really. It just in the sense of like, you know, simply keeping in mind the reasons other people enjoy something before you go into it. Which like in like research, you could probably, you know, figure that out too, but you don't necessarily have to do research to just kind of see people's like opinions around, or like kind of know people who have experienced the thing. Mm-hmm. So I do think just like if you know the reasons why someone else likes a certain thing, just knowing that while you're watching, even if you don't end up enjoying it in that same way, or like you don't really like it, I think you'll still be a little more fond of it, just because like, okay, I can see why this other person enjoyed it in the way they did, especially if you are like friends with that person. I feel part of my enjoyment of Ava is because of other people, because like I do like Ava, but like it's really 3.0 plus 1.0 that like makes me really like it, whereas like the original anime series and End of Ava, I feel like if I rewatch those, there's like parts of it that like I don't really love, like I don't dislike, but I don't love it, but I feel like it is kind of just like, okay, I can see why other people like this, especially with End of Ava, where like I think I would just dislike End of Ava like with no like no remorse, but like I wouldn't know how I would really enjoy End of Ava at all if not for like just keeping in mind why other people like it so much, because like I just don't agree with End of Ava, and there's not really like any other thing that I like that kind of does that same sort of thing. But yeah, I do think that's a very easy thing to do when you're trying to like enjoy something, just like, you know, think about other people, I guess.
Personal example I have with that is my brother really likes the Lord of the Rings movies, but he also likes the Hobbit movies. And back when I was starting YouTube, I was, you know, more toxic about like shitting on them and stuff, because I only saw the first two. I did not like them, and you know, I had no interest in seeing the third one. But like, you know, he liked like how Thorin's character was handled, and from the way he describes it, like it sounds like there's interesting or neat stuff there that's not in the books, because of course it's not, because the movies just go in their own direction, you know. And that just was one of the things that helped me think more about like, kind of what you were saying about how like, you know, other people can enjoy the things I don't like for different reasons, and that's not, you know, just because I don't like it isn't really an excuse to be, you know, shitty about it, right? And you know, so like, you know, I haven't gone to give the Hobbit movies another shot. I don't expect to like them, even if I did, but you know, I still have that other's perspective in mind, and you know, like keeping other people's perspectives in mind, you know, that can help you at least not be toxic or overly negative or something, because like, you know, I run into like, I've seen a lot of horror movies. I don't really like horror movies, you know, but like like I was looking up The Exorcist, you know, because I had seen it, you know, and I was just like, it sure was a horror movie. I didn't like it, you know, but like reading on just the Wikipedia page, there was so much fucking interest. Like the movie was interesting, and like the regards like how it was made, and what people were talking, like the critics and stuff were saying about the movie, and like I was like, oh shit, okay, you know, like that made me, you know, more interested in the movie like retroactively than I ever had been just watching it, you know. So like, you know,
yeah, I think there's like plenty of popular things that I will be able to enjoy through just kind of like other people. I recently watched Hazel's, which was I mentioned watching Hazel and like it was like 2 episodes ago or something, so I don't feel like explaining who she is, but she made like a Fooly Cooly video, and I don't really care for Fooly Cooly, but like watching it and like seeing how she enjoys it and how other people enjoy it made me really want to rewatch it, because it's like it kind of made me like I don't know, like it made me feel something in a way that I can't really fully describe, and like it's a feeling I've had about other things, just not Fully Cooley. So it's like it kind of does make me want to give Fully Cooley another shot. Especially because I only saw it the one time, and like, I mean, technically not fully the one time, because like as a kid, like I do remember it airing. I just never like watched all of it. But I watched it way later when like I feel like the time in which I watched it, I kind of didn't really have any kind of perspective or like reason I would connect with it specifically. But I think watching it and kind of hearing how she enjoys it, I think there might be a way I could connect with it and like it now, which is kind of like also part of what I would say about like another way you can enjoy something is kind of just like, you know, acknowledging that you change as a person. So like part of who you are now can maybe prepare you to be able to go through something again. And like, I think when you first go through something, you definitely kind of like, especially if you're just like, if you've only seen something when you're like 12 or something, you just don't really have the life experience that like would gear you to connect with that thing specifically. And it's not really like the work in question's fault or anything.
No, yeah, you reminded me actually, because I have rewatched some things, and like, yeah, because aside from even you, especially like watching stuff that you watched as a kid, like I think, or even just to a less extreme degree, like I think one of the like, if it connects to you as a kid and as an adult, like that's probably something that becomes like a favorite, right? Where obviously like there's gonna be some stuff that doesn't connect to you when you're a kid or younger, even just like. Like maybe Fully Cooley, right? Where you didn't connect with you the first time, and maybe if you rewatch it, you'll like it more, or even like it a lot, right? Like it would be a hypothetical example, But like I just what came to mind was with One Piece, where I loved the shit out of it in high school. I love the shit out of it now, but like we're talking half my life at this point, and but the reasons I like it are completely different, because like it's just a story that was able to connect to me then, and it's connected to me now. And it just, I don't know, it's interesting to think about, I guess.
Yeah, like, I feel like something that a lot of people do is, like, I feel like with the vast majority of media that a lot of people consume, like, like, if you don't like it, a lot of it is a you issue. Like, I don't want to say that, like, something can't actually be, like, failing at what it set out to do, or like there are works that do actually contradict themselves thematically or whatever, but like I feel like in the large body of work that actually is like popular, that people actually go out of their way to watch and actually discuss, I don't think there's this like as much like bad media and bad like anime out there where like people would actually just see like a lot of bad shows and have like a lot of like, unless you're going out of your way, I don't think there's a lot of series that people consume that are like genuinely as bad as like people kind of view them as, especially when like in the past I've seen people say like, oh, it's rare for an anime to have like a good ending, or like
I was thinking of that exact
Battle
thing.
Shonen typically don't have good endings or bad arcs, or I mean like bad final arcs or whatever, when that's like, I don't really think that's true. And like, if I want to be like extremely charitable, at least not true nearly to the extent of which that people say. But yeah, that was just something I was thinking about.
No, and I guess one thing that I thought of both then and earlier was more, I guess my response to Tanya's question is like, I guess, I don't know, I think one thing that definitely was big is honestly, or just in big in general, is I think is environment, right? Where it's like, because when I was thinking of like, I watch these shows like Legend of Galactic Heroes, like I don't dislike the show at all. Like I still think it's good. I just think it's a 7 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10, which, I think if you hear people talk about Legend of Galactic Heroes and you see its general reputation as being like this big classic anime, like you know, like, I understand why it's liked. It has good presentation, you know, it has this very serious tone, and with a classical soundtrack, and, you know, grounded character designs, and it's a sweeping epic, and, you know, it just didn't connect with me as much as I hoped it would. Like, you know, I liked a few, you know, I found it reasonably engaging. I don't like the space battles at all. I could literally fall asleep during an episode and not miss anything. Like, they kind of sucked, honestly. And like, I was gonna watch the remake, and what honestly turned me off of watching it the most was having to go through the fucking battles again, because they're so fucking boring. So I guess I do dislike something in maybe not dislike, but I fucking am irritated by something like Galactic Heroes. But, you know, but I gave it a 10 out of 10 when I first watched it, and I was on 4chan at the time, and they really like Legend of Galactic Heroes, and they also liked a lot of shows that I also, you know, liked, or gave a high score at the time. Like, another one is Ghost of the Shell Standalone Complex, which, you know, my difference is, you know, I gave it an 8 instead of a 9, but I still like it, right? But, you know, so I don't know, I was just thinking about, like, with, you know, being really critical and negative and thinking these things, like, you know, most anime in general have bad endings or whatever. Like, if you surround yourself with people like that, you're going to become more like that, right? You know, so I think, like, what's been super helpful for me, like, being able to stand on my own in these sort of discussions and just, you know, not give as much of a shit, or just, you know, is, yeah, I just moved away from those kind of places and those kind of people. And, you know, so yeah. That was just the thought I had.
Yeah, I have one thing I have here is that, like, at least for me, I feel like having, when it comes to, like, the biggest thing I think that's helped me set expectations is that just overall better media literacy, and then, like, understanding my personal taste helps me so much to set expectations, right? Because, like, not that I always know from, you know, promotional material or, you know, basic things if I'm gonna like something or not, and I can be surprised, but generally it's like I'm surprised thinking, like, maybe something's not gonna be super great, and, like, it is, but I also feel like I've started to get a pretty good read sometimes, like, beforehand, if something's gonna be you know, either what I like or whatever, even through, like, kind of dog shit trailers. Like, one that I stand by that I fucking called from, like, the second trailer. I was like, look, this game looks like it could be fucking good, I'm into it, is, like, the Eidos Montreal Guardians of the Galaxy game. That game came out, went fucking hard. Anyone who played it is like, that's one of the best games that year, and I was saying it looked good from, like, the first trailer, so I don't even want to hear it. I'm the fucking GOAT. All right. But no, like, I just think, like, you know, the more stuff you experience, and the more you try to understand your own personal, what you're into, and you just, like, set your expectations to that. But, like, I think an important part of that is also, like, don't write stuff off, right? Like, part of, I feel like, setting expectations is, like, you know, maybe leaning towards stuff you're gonna like, and, like, enjoying stuff you're gonna like with your time, but also, like, if something kind of interests you, or, like, you're talking about something that kind of doesn't fit your tastes, like, don't write it off just because it doesn't fit your tastes, because there are times where you think you might not like something, and you might end up, you know what I mean, like, enjoying it. It might be your thing. I can't tell you how many times I've been like, yeah, I just don't like X, and then I end up finding something I really like, and, like, that, you know what I mean?
What I remember for you is, I don't like exploring in games, and then you get into Dark Souls, and it's like, well, fuck. You know, like, that was a specific one that you mentioned or something, or maybe it was something else, but I remember you said something about that or something, and then you got into Dark Souls, and it's like, changed my mind.
It kind of reminds me of, like, when One Piece was, like, people were talking about when One Piece was doing time travel or something. I still haven't even gotten to that, so I don't know what the context is. But everybody acted like it was going to be so bad, so terrible. Like, oh no, I'm so worried. And nobody talks about that anymore. I have no idea what came of that. I just know it wasn't a big deal.
I mean, I've only talked about it in the sense of, like, wow, people got really fucking mad over this for no fucking reason. But yeah, also to talk about, like, yeah, you know, writing things off or not is, like, in high school, I wrote off anime because, you know, I'd been watching some shows, but I also kind of thought, you know, all my favorite manga they either have anime adaptations that aren't that good, or they just don't have fucking anime adaptations. Like 20th Century Boys and One Piece, which obviously the anime is, especially at the time, it was fine, but and lots of people love it, but I preferred the manga. Steel Ball Run still doesn't have an anime, even though now JoJo actually has a good adaptation. When at the time, it didn't. So Pluto, in fact, a lot of the series that I liked back then still don't have, or I haven't seen the Hoshino Samadare anime, and I don't know what the problem with it is. I just thought about I know it was disappointing to people, and I don't think people like it very much, But anyway, so but yeah, I wrote off anime for a while, and then in 2012, I finally got into anime, and it was still it's a nostalgic point when I think about the shows that were coming out then, because I would just try whatever the fuck seemed interesting and watch things without knowing, without understanding, but just having this interest in watching shit that I didn't care for at the end of the day, but is still memorable to me because it was new. I hadn't really watched an ecchi series, but then I watched Korowa Zombie Desu Ka? I forget what the I guess it is this a zombie? I forget what the English would be. Didn't care for it, but it was something unlike anything I'd seen before, and that was kind of exciting. And then I also think going outside of your comfort zone, can lead to some great discoveries. To give a positive and negative example for me is I mentioned horror movies. I tried a bunch of them. I can say that I don't care for horror movies generally because I've tried enough to know that they're not for me, but I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, they're so shallow. Oh, they're just whatever. They can be interesting even if I'm not interested in them generally, and there's a couple that I like even. And then the positive one is I always mention Aikatsu and Kira Kira Precure a la mode, where I literally watched these shows, started them, knew they were long, and I just kind of wasn't feeling them at first. And then the more I watched, the more I got into them. And I have literally, I don't have a video on Aikatsu, but I do have my Aikatsu Stars video. And then I have my Precure a la mode video, and I love the shit out of both of these franchises, right? So, and now I'm super into Magical Girls, and it's well, shit. I just fucking, so, yeah, that's was my experience with, dismissing something or, thinking it's not for me. So
yeah, that's a really good point. I feel I do think it's super necessary for you to once in a while challenge your assumptions and expectations by consuming something that's not normally in your wheelhouse. I feel a really, really good example for me is actually Last of Us, where I would have never in a million years assumed that a survival shooter game would be my favorite game ever. That it's so unlike everything else that I normally like, especially if I feel there was a time period where if I had played Last of Us, I probably wouldn't have liked it as much as I do now, just because of I think the way I engage with games and just art in general is different now, especially with I feel I understand story wise what I like in something, because my brother owned the first Last of Us game on PS3, but I never got around to actually just trying it out, and I'm glad that I didn't, just because I know it's a funny thing to say to compare Last of Us to Naruto, but just a little bit of me liking the general cycle of hatred kind of thing, and kind of I think with and I think with Sasuke, right, he's a portrayal of revenge and kind of why revenge isn't really fulfilling and blah blah blah, and I think kind of getting the opportunity to really enjoy Naruto in that kind of way before I actually played Last of Us was really important and really good for me, because I obviously would have liked Naruto back when the PS3 was out and Last of Us was newer or whatever, but I just wouldn't have viewed those kind of like story things in the same kind of way. And I'm super glad that like I actually tried out Last of Us and kind of like went through the whole series.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there'll always be like, for once you reach a certain age and like a certain kind of like experience level with media, I guess there's probably gonna be something that isn't what you normally consume, but like also does like have a lot of the aspects that you've slowly grown to love and like and recognize that you connect with in like certain media.
Yeah. Also, I sorry. Like I agree. I also think like another part of that personally is like I think, with games, is like sometimes like types of games or games can just take a little bit of time to click. You know what I mean? Like, for example, you know, it could be like an RPG where you just kind of need to get some like certain abilities, right? Like I do think that like, especially Kingdom Hearts 2, if you're first timing it and you don't know what to look out for and what's coming, I think the game, even though I love that game, can kind of take a little bit to really click. You know what I mean? Like it's by the, you know, like the second run through of all the Disney worlds, but you know, like it's that first little half like can take a little bit to click when you don't have all these options. I also think then for like multiplayer games, you know, a lot of times the game clicking is like to the point where it's like it's where like, you know, you have to understand what's going on. Where like, you know, your first time playing, you know, for a lot of people playing like a fighting game, or you know, like a MOBA, so something like League of Legends or Dota, or you know, even like certain shooters that are, you know, like something like Quake. You're like, if you're just getting shit on, same with like an RTS like StarCraft, you're just not gonna have a good time and you're not gonna get it. And like, it's weird to say that like you have to not enjoy it to enjoy it, but there is just like a level sometimes with stuff where it might take a while to click, you know. And so personally, I don't let like having a bad experience with something a couple times or not being able to get into something stop, unless like I can actively say like I hated this wasn't for me. If it was just like I couldn't get into it, I never let that for me actually mean like this is fully written off forever, right? Like I have started games multiple times and then finally gotten into it like the third or fourth time, played it all the way through and loved it enough times in my life that like I understand that like sometimes something can not click with me in the moment. It doesn't mean that I don't like it. It doesn't mean I couldn't not love it. It just right now might not be the perfect time, but if I feel like it, I should come back when I do and just, you know what I mean? Like, always leave the door open on stuff. Never, like, fully shut the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that could be, like, Xenoblade with me, because I really can't, like, play the first Xenoblade game right now. Which is funny, because, like, I had Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Wii U, and I played, like, a decent amount of that, which, like, I know it's the least popular and least cared for one.
I kind of forget it exists.
I need them to bring that game out so fucking bad, dude. The soundtrack banger. Mechs, oh my, please. Nintendo.
I think another way in which you can, you know, enjoy things more, which is like, you know, I definitely think we've touched on in like most of everything we've talked about so far, but it's like simply, you know, just trying to be like more sympathetic in general. More so, I feel like, you know, you can recognize like the limitations of the media that you're consuming. I think a good example is just like, you know, with manga, like if like with Oda, for example, like some people aren't as like understanding of like Oda's health and like why current One Piece in some regards is the way it is, because you know Oda has to wrap up the series and is like making some concessions to make that happen. And then also like, you know, an example we've talked about is like obviously Game Freak. Like we try to understand that the situation they're in and like why Pokemon games are the way they are. And I do think that is like a good way of trying to enjoy something more.
Yeah, I don't have any more bullet points about the topic. Does anyone else?
I feel like we should move on.
Have...
Oh, go ahead then.
Let me see. I have like one more. Which is just like, I mean, I do also think it has been touched upon, but it was kind of just like searching for multiple different ways that something can be interpreted, like interpreted. Just because, like, you know, I think a lot of people end up not enjoying something because they stick to just their one interpretation, or like the one thing that they thought it was going for, but it you know, it turns out it actually wasn't. Like, I have like two examples for this. It's like one where like I need to re-experience the series to like fully have it click with me. With quintessential quintuplets, I had in my mind that one of the other girls was gonna win, but it turned out a different one won. And like, it didn't make me dislike the series. Like, I still like it. I think I liked it a little bit less just because like I wasn't thinking about her as the winner, so like I have to like kind of re-examine like like the whole series and kind of like those ending chapters and stuff. So like I feel like with quintessential quintuplets, I think I kind of decided who I thought was going to win a little bit too early, and it ended up harming my enjoyment of the series. Like, I feel like I should have been already open to like other characters winning, I guess. And I think that's like kind of an example of like one interpretation can harm your enjoyment, especially when like I've heard explanations of like why the character who won actually like makes the most sense, and like it made sense to me hearing the explanation. So like I kind of wish I had already considered them and why like they fit. But one thing that I think was like a more successful kind of like different way of interpreting things was kind of how I view Resurrection of Lelouch. Since like that film, I'm not going to spoil it. I know how to explain this without spoiling it, actually. It undoes part of Zero Requiem. What I guess that is kind of a little bit of a spoiler for the movie, not really for the show. I'm not going to explain what Zero Requiem is, but like it undoes part of it. But like I still actually think the movie makes sense in just like other aspects of Code Geass. And like I explained it a little bit before, of just kind of like it just kind of relates to these different masks and these different sides of Lelouch, and like I just have like a different way of enjoying and seeing what that movie's doing, even if it's not my like favorite. Like I still think Zero Requiem and how R2 ended is like the best of the series so far, but like I still found a way to make sense of it. And I also do think that like Resurrection of Lelouch, in like a fan service way for part of it, is just like really good. Like I love seeing Lelouch just being able to be a good person. Like it's fucking awesome. But yeah, I think that like multiple interpretation thing is like probably one of the most important ways to like enjoy something, I feel like, at least.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about Oshi? All right. Do you want to start with the OP since the episode started with the OP?
Sure.
I saw a bunch of people saying it's mid. I mean, you know, I want to be a little biased naturally towards like the Yoasobi song. And like, I think it's fine, but I will say that like, I don't know, something about like the visuals, I don't think they're super good, but when I first sat down to like watch the episode, I wasn't like super in the mood for it. But by the end of the OP, like I was into it. Like I was watching and I was like ready. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. So it is what it is.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
I only saw it the once, but the group that I didn't have subtitles for the songs, so
yeah,
you know, which that would also, you know, affect like how much I could get out of the OP, I guess, you know, because like I don't know, because it's an aspect that I, you know, obviously we've talked about before, you know, historically, with people just not giving a shit about the lyrics, like motherfucking Mother's Basement spending, you know, talking about OP's this thing, and just songs have lyrics, what? You know, and it definitely affects like I think my favorite OP, Fight Together from One Piece, is like part of the reason I like that, you know, is because of how much the lyrics add to the, you know, just tie to what's going on, and it's so fucking good. But you know, so I didn't think a lot on the OP, honestly. But it was good.
Yeah,
I'm fine with like opening. Like, I would prefer if it was subbed, but like I won't really hold it against groups who don't sub the openings. It's really more egregious when it's like if there's a performance by Ruby and singing, and if they don't sub that, I'm going to kill someone.
That bugged the shit out of me with Love Live, because I literally, the official subgroups, or at least the ones ripping from Crunchyroll, didn't have subtitles for the fucking songs in Love Live, especially the superstars, where, the songs actually fucking are important and matter, because it's fucking Love Live, but, yeah. But yeah.
I thought the opening was decent. I like it. It sounded to me like one that I would like more on future listens. Like, I think it will grow on me, but I'm not like that into it right now. But I can kind of hear it, and I kind of like the general vibe of it. I'm just like, I do think I was also kind of like not fully in the mood for it too. So I'm not like that into it yet, but it's pretty decent. Visually, I do also agree that like it's kind of like not great, but I'll try to pay more attention to it next time.
But anyway, the episode kind of did obviously it had to, just by nature, but we know where Ruby and Aqua are at in their respective careers, and where they have to go from here, basically.
I think the episode did a good job in that way, like setting up it did a good job of like paying off the promise it set up in the last episode, right? Where the last episode ends and it kind of hints at us that, the show is going to be a lot about the entertainment industry and like the drama surrounding that. And that's what most of this episode was, right? So it was giving us what the last episode like told us. And then what I liked was the end of this episode was like setting up what next episode is, right? So I assume next episode is gonna probably be mostly, wacky, goofy, like school hijinks. And so I like that this episode wasn't that until like right at the very, very, last like minute, and instead just gave us like the 20 minutes of what it told us the show was gonna be from last episode, like the end of last episode. You know what I mean? So I think it did a good job, like directly playing into what my viewer expectations were and giving me like something worthwhile out of that,
I do really like how the episode ended, like you said, with the silly gags, because it's like the obviously we had the ending of the last episode being super serious, and this is kind of like cooling off from that, but no, it's still generally serious, like pretty much the whole episode, entirely. And then you get to fucking Kana, and it's like, oh yeah, you're the child actress who licks baking soda, and she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then you're in the creative course, right? And he's like, no, general education. She's just like, why? And that's it, and that's just the end of the episode. And just start doing a dumb face, and it was funny.
Speaking of that like joke, it was funny. When I watched the first episode with someone else, they didn't pick up that like that joke is a pun, right? Like they just didn't like hear that like the two things that were said sounded like the exact same, or not the exact same, obviously, but are similar enough that like you can hear if you listen for it that it's a pun. Yeah. And I like pointed it out, and so that just like is interesting to me, because like that's something that I was thinking about then when it came up again in this episode, is like. That's something I just guess like, comes from watching a lot and listeing to a lot with subs, is that like eventually over time you should get to the point where, you'll be able to hear, like, you hear, because I'm sure, both of y'all heard that it was a pun. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, even if I didn't hear, just knowing how much wordplay and puns are just an aspect of Japanese humor that is more, more so than, not obviously you have those in English too, but I feel like, you don't have whole like characters in shows based around making puns, right? Even comedy shows,
right,
where like Hajime no Ippo came to mind because Miyata's family, like their whole thing is they make these terrible fucking puns, right? And like that's not a thing in American humor, really. Like they're just like a kind of grown-worthy joke, and that's it, not something, so but and
I
we
thought
got
that Aqua's sorry. I thought that Aqua having that little relationship with the director still was funny and silly.
I love the director.
Like, seeing him like the director trying to give this like guy who's maybe older, like close to his age, just advice, and it's just not working like at all.
I was thinking about that too, where it's like, because he's trying to be like, you're too young to give up on your
not only
dreams,
older, but like,
it's like
by almost any metric that people would use, like more successful, right? Except for the director, who would not say that the guy was more successful, which is why the director's the GOAT, because he'd be, you know, he's fucking still dreaming. He's staying true to himself. Hero. GOAT.
Well, I also laughed like later when like Aqua's explaining to the school basically why he wants to do, like, why did you come to this school? And like there's the like the little text that points out that he went to like a fucking he's a fucking doctor. He went to a real ass school, and so he's like overperforming by their standards. And that was pretty funny.
One thing I thought that was like a little weird, but like it, like I'm sure it'll be gone into more in like the coming episodes, was just like it was like a little quick on how Aqua like accepted what the fuck Ruby being like you know, doing the idol thing. Like, I get that part of the point is like, you know, it's their agency and it's a little closer to home, so like he has more control over it. But I still feel like, obviously, I, you know, still got killed.
What I got out of it,
but like, it was a little quick on how it changed up without like a big moment to like accompany it.
So I felt like it wasn't that like a big moment wasn't needed, because like the like, at least the way I interpreted like the way the episode played out was that like once she gets scouted on the street immediately after, he realizes just like naturally like she wants to be an idol bad enough, and she's like attractive enough, and like everyone keeps saying all episode, you know what I mean? Like if he hadn't put that call in, she probably would have made it, right? So like he had to sabotage her, and she still like was able to just get scouted naturally on the street, that like he's not going to be able to stop her. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
See, I get that, but like even after their current mother, I don't remember her name is.
Miyako, I had to look it up myself.
Yeah, her, even after she basically explains that, he's still like saying he's gonna stop her.
Well,
so
I mean,
that wasn't really the reason that he changed his mind, at least in how it
my
seemed.
takeaway was just that, like, you know, because, you know, piggybacking off what Vindy said, is that, like, you know, yeah, Ruby she's going to find a way, or she's going to keep trying, you know, where it's like, well, okay, I guess, like, at least logically, like, the next step is, okay, she's going to be an idol. Where is the safest place for her to be as an idol? And it's like, well, with Ichigo Productions, right? With her family, basically, you know? So, because at least then she's
I just feel like they could have maybe,
street.
like, said it, because, like, I don't think he actually, like, really, you know...
That's true.
Mentioned changing his mind straight up.
If he even changed his mind, he might have just, like, accepted it for now. But,
yeah, that's the thing, too. I think where, like, the following episode, you know, he still could be trying to stop her, like, make her fail in some kind of way so it doesn't work out, or some weird thing, like... That's one of those things where, like, I don't know the future context of it, and they could even flash back to him, you know, talking about it with whatever that character's name is, and then being like, oh yeah, I changed my mind or whatever. Like, I just don't know how it'll work off of it. I don't really think it's like a big deal or anything.
Dude, oh my god, I love this for Dogakobo. I love how popular the show is, how much everyone's love it. Dogakobo deserve this. This is their time. Like, fuck Mappa. It's time for Dogakobo supremacy for like at least a decade now, right? They've been putting out fucking bangers over a decade. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Bangers, banger after banger after banger. Every fucking show they make, good, has cute girls, just slaps. You know what I mean? They hit the fucking mark. And so, like, I'm so happy that now they're having this, like, crazy popular, well-received, well-liked show that, like, everyone loves and is, like, number 1 or 2 on Mal right now or some shit like that? Number 1 on Mal right now? Like,
yeah.
Go off, Kings.
That's right.
My
It's
goats.
still number 1 ranked show. John,
Let's
2
fucking
episodes.
go.
2 episodes in like the 5 episodes, but okay.
Yeah, like I do not care that like, you know, I don't think this is. I don't know if I would say this is their best show. I think, you know, there are other shows that are just as good probably so far. And other things, you know, are not above it on Mal that like I would put above it on Mal. It doesn't fucking matter. My goat, I'm happy for it. Just because it's Togakobo, they deserve it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think once Oshi no Ko does like blackface like Love Lab, then they'll have their like next number 1. But like we're kind of still waiting on that. You know?
True. Do we have anything more to say on Oshi no Ko, or are we gonna go to backlogs?
I feel like, you know, it was a good episode, but, you know, obviously compared to episode 1, you know, not as much to say, so we could probably move on to the backlogs.
All right, Nunmanji.
I didn't finish much, so it's just Wake Up Girls because that's the only thing I finished.
Let's go.
It was all right. I do think maybe that last season's a bit of a step down from the other stuff. Like, I think Wake Up Girls
agree.
already had a little bit of an issue with, like, it doesn't really have that many songs in it, because I feel like the actual real group, they probably didn't have that many songs, so it's kind of hard to have, like, a lot of performances in the show. Or maybe that's just, like, standard, and, like, I'm comparing it to literally Love Live, which is, like, the most popular idol show, and, like, they're a big group, so they have a lot of songs. Maybe that's why, but like I always kind of felt like it, you know, they don't have that many performances and they perform some of the same songs like again, which isn't like always a bad thing. Like I kind of do like, you know, they're more experienced, but they're still like singing their like first song ever, but again, but like for a bigger audience. But it's still like I would have kind of liked more performances, and this season in particular, there's like less than ever because it's like focusing on these little side jobs that everyone's doing and these little like things to promote the group. But I still, you know, mostly liked it. I would still like, you know, watch it if I were already, you know, watching the rest of Wake Up Girls. I also thought like part of the ending was pretty good. Like I think the whole idea of kind of just having like all the idols in basically Japan come together to defeat the VTube idol whatever thing.
I don't remember that at all.
Was funny, and yeah, that was like you don't remember that?
No.
There was a virtual idol, and she was literally like, well, I mean, she wasn't like sentient, but like the people running her were like purposely scheduling her to like interfere with the Wake Up Girls like concert, and they're basically like trying to kill off like the other idols. They also had like America involved, like an American company swooped in to sponsor it, and they had like, you know, clearly Japanese people voicing them but doing like English. Hello, I'm from America. I would like to, you know, like it was just like awkward stuff like that, but it was kind of funny and good. It was a silly season, especially with like, it's still, you know, it still has I1 Club, and they're still like cartoonish a little bit in how they, you know, don't rest, don't think, don't complain, be grateful. But I still, it was all right. You know, I'm glad I watched it, I guess. It wasn't ever difficult to watch, so I, you know, can't really hate.
Cool.
You can do your thing, Vindy.
So I am going to talk about this show now, and I might talk about it again. We'll see. Probably I will at some point when it finishes, I assume. But I finished the second season of Succession, the HBO show, and I ended up fucking really liking it. It took a while for it to really click for me, I think. I don't know if I talked about it before. I don't think I did, but maybe I did when I was like grasping for things. But like I was kind of into it at the end of season 1, but not like super into it. And I think it was just like a lot. Like the show's a lot, and it takes a little bit for you to really get like a good understanding of what all is going on, because the show just kind of drops you in and lets you like watch what's going on. And basically, like the premise of the show is it's a guy who's like runs like a massive media empire, like big media like firm that owns like Fox News and has like, you know, cruises and parks and like does movies and, you know, like other like news outlets and stuff like that, right? Like just big media firm. The like guy who owns it is like a old father, and he has like 3 or 4 kids, and like the 4 kids are kind of vying for control of the company when he eventually chooses his successor. And he's like basically kind of testing them and playing games with them, and also like the, you know, company itself is having games that it's having to play with, you know, the market at large and stuff like that. And so it's like basically this like like kind of a political drama, but not like politics, you know. It's like a lot of I mean there's some politics, but it's like mostly the, you know, the stuff going on with their company. And it took a little bit for me to get into, I think partially because like I had to acclimate to the business stuff that is like a part of the show. And like it got to a point where like, you know, by the end of season 2 I was like losing my mind at like 2 characters sitting in a room talking about, you know, like essentially what's going to happen at an investor meeting, you know what I mean, or what they're going to set up a press conference for. It's like, oh my fucking god. But like it takes a while for you to like get into it, you know what I mean, and like actually for it to click. And also then for you to get like an understanding of like who the characters are and what their motivations are, and not just like what their motivations are, but like how they play their games, right? Because all the characters are trying. Like I wouldn't say that all the characters are actually like playing 4D chess with each other, because especially like the kids like aren't that good at it, and they aren't like super smart, so they like fuck up a lot and they mess up a lot and they fail a lot. But that's like part of it. And so you're watching them like try to all play 4D chess with each other to varying degrees and varying results, and like play the cards that they have. And like because you kind of see a little bit of everything, you know, but you don't know everything, but you know more than like what an individual character knows in like some instances. So it's just like really fun to watch it all play out. It's like really good like character drama. I don't know. It's super fun, and I like watching all the characters and like their because they all have like plans and shit that they're trying to do, and so you watch them and you're trying to like figure out what their plans are, but you kind of get a gist of it as the season comes, you know what I mean, to a head, and then things get shaken up and everything changes. It's really good. The last thing I want to say about it really quickly, or 2 things. Just like if anyone's seen the show, Greg and Kendall are the fucking goats. And then also I think the show has like maybe my favorite soundtrack of any like TV show I've ever seen, just like American TV show.
Okay.
The music goes so fucking hard in the background constantly. I'm not gonna say it's distracting because like it fits well and it doesn't take away from the show, but like it goes crazy. I love the OST of this show. It is so fucking good.
Nice. Okay, so a couple weeks ago, Vindy was like, Crafts, you're so disgusting rewatching Aikatsu. That means you don't have God. And, you know, that hurt me a little bit. So I found God. A few weeks ago, I watched The Passion of the Christ, and this last week I watched The Pope's Exorcist. So I'm going to talk about those. I'm a Christian now because I watched these 2 movies. So anyway, The Passion of the Christ is it was on my list of like important movies I feel like I should watch, and I'm not sure if it's an actually important movie or if it was just controversial or discussed a lot at a certain point in time and I remembered it for that reason. It's you know, and it's basically just, you know, the story of Jesus's like last day alive before he gets crucified. And I was like, you know, yeah, I liked it. It's, you know, and it's an important story, and it's told with this very like sort of grand presentation, if that makes sense. So, you know, it was. I honestly like. I've never read the Bible. I you know, I know a lot aspects about it and Christianity, but I've never actually like engaged with many stories in it, except for like I think I had a children's book that was like Noah's Ark or something like that, and you know, obviously I've so I'm familiar with some of them, but you know, yeah, it was neat. I thought it was I liked it. Then The Pope's Exorcist I watched because some coworkers were gonna watch it and they invited me, and I was like, sure, why not? And so it was basically it's based on a real life person an exorcist who did a bunch of exorcisms and wrote books and memoirs about it. Russell Crowe plays the exorcist guy, Gabriel Amorth, and he there's an exorcism in Spain and he has to take down Asmodeus. It was the movie. Sure, I don't know. It was fine. I wouldn't recommend it. I guess like one thing I took from it was that like I don't know, because the Russell Crowe's character was pretty likable. I guess like as a priest, like one thing he talks about how like the devil doesn't like jokes, so like he tells another priest that he should learn them. And I guess what like as someone who hasn't interacted with a lot of like Christianity and has mostly seen it from the outside, it seems very like self-serious, and so like having any amount of humor like in like was like, oh okay, I haven't seen that before, to the point that I like the character better than the real ass person, because I was looking him up after the movie, and so the real life Gabriel Amorth, who has passed away as of a few years ago, he says that all Eastern religions are based on a false belief in reincarnation, and practicing yoga is satanic. It leads to evil, just like reading Harry Potter. So, so yeah, I was like, yeah, he's one of those.
Transphobes catch these hands. What a hero.
Oh yeah. So anyway, yeah, so I was like, okay, yeah, I like the character better than the real ass dude. And then another thing that made me appreciate the movie slightly more is because like one of the plot elements in the movie is basically like that, because like the Asmodeus is trying to possess the priest himself, basically because he has a grudge against him, and like they're researching stuff, and they find out that the castle that the possession happened at was also there's like fucking Spanish Inquisition stuff there, and it turned out that the Spanish Inquisition was started because one of the priests was possessed, and he led to this like long period of like horrible torments at the hands of the Catholic Church, for the name of God, but ultimately like doing this pretty horrible thing. And so the actual what are they? The International Association of Exorcists didn't like the movie because like it calls into question doubt as to whether there is the real enemy devil or the power of the church. And I'm like, because priests can't do bad things ever, like which the movie kind of draws that up, and like obviously I don't know, I was just like, yeah, real Christians Christian fiction based, I don't know, except for Christian, but you're pretty
whoa
cool. No, I know, like on an individual level, like I have a lot of friends, or I have several friends who identify as Christian, and I think they're cool, but like once you go like too far above that, it's like, okay, y'all need to stop. So that's just been my experience, I guess, as a someone who was raised by parents, especially my dad, who hates religion but didn't raise me with that. So now I like and am more interested in religion than him. So yeah, there's my Christianity arc.
Cool.
So you guys don't have anything else, do you?
I prepped a second potential thing if we had to. I also worked today, and I'm like tired as fuck. So if we want to fucking end it, I am trying to end it.
This is only if Crafts wants to do another.
I kind of wanted to do another one, but whatever. I won't do it then.
We can do another one. I mean, if you want to.
I kind of want to. I'm sorry.
Craftsdwarf, it's your special day. You can do another.
Why is 420 my special day?
It is what it is. I guess I'll quickly do another one.
Yeah, I wasn't going to be very long, but,
Well, since Craftsdwarf wanted to do another one, I guess, his selfishness is going to cause its return.
Oh, no.
Kind of like a certain movie that exists in the franchise that I'm about to talk about. It's Code Geass time. Let's go. I've been rewatching Code Geass, the first season. I kind of wanted to rewatch dub, but I'm gonna save that for later, I guess. It's still good. I like it more than before. I'm appreciating, the mix of, school and the terrorist stuff. Like, I feel like it has a very cool and different vibe, especially because, the last stuff I would have seen is the R2 stuff where it doesn't have, it's not using school in the same kind of way. So it is fun to see things in a bit of the lower stakes right now before like the bigger stuff happens. I'm also, still trying to notice new things that I didn't notice before. Even though I think some of what I want to get to is a little bit later, but I'm having a good time. I'm on episode 7 right now. I unfortunately didn't get to watch more today because I was doing other stuff, but I'm still gayassing.
Hell yeah. I love that for you, King.
Thank you.
All right, Vindy.
So my second thing is I've been playing a lot of, and I just counted this as like if I needed something else. I'm playing a lot of the Master Chief Collection recently. Mostly multiplayer. But I mean, it's been nice to just be able to play Halo 3 multiplayer again. But I'm not just queuing that. Like I queue like Halo like 3, 2, and 1, and then sometimes Reach. And so it's nice. I like playing a mix. I've been playing it at different times of the day and different times of the week, and you get different games based on like time of day or time of the week. Like will show up in the rotation more. Like after like 5, like in the middle of the day, you get a lot more Reach. But like weekends and like especially like Friday, Saturday night, it's like just Halo 3. You'll get Halo 2 and 1 at really odd times, which is funny. And like I do respect certain things about the Master Chief Collection. I like how untarnished the games feel. When I'm going into it and I'm playing Halo 1 or Halo 2 or Halo 3, it feels like those games. Even like looking at the tab or the scoreboard looks like normal. I like that. But it has really made me think about just how dog shit 343's track record is with Halo games. Like, oh my god, let's talk about what 343 has actually put out as a company, right, for Halo. We're not gonna count Spartan Assault. Their mobile games. Okay. They did a Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary Edition, which Craftsdwarf and me both agree.
Yep. Yeah.
Dog shit visuals. They like completely lose everything that makes like Halo 1 look special and have like its own unique visual style. Awful.
The atmosphere is just not there. It sucks. Yeah.
Yeah. Then they did Halo 4 mid. Then they did launch Halo Master Chief Collection, which I know you didn't play launch Halo MCC Craftsdwarf, but it was a fucking shit show. So they do not get credit for the game being good now. The game isn't theirs. They didn't make Halos 1 through Reach. Bungie made those games good. They just, copied them in this collection and put them in here.
And still barely did that
and
right.
It took them years to get that fucking functional. There's still problems all the time on PC. So I don't give them anything for the Master Chief Collection. Just the fact that they get Halo 3 working means that I'll be playing it. It doesn't matter how good of a job it is because they did a terrible job, right? Then, they did Halo 5, which nobody fucking likes, and then they did Halo Infinite, which is bad. And, they gave up on co-op after, saying it was going to have it. They're like, yeah, you know what? We just won't do co-op. And the multiplayer is fucking dead. Look at that. So, 343 are just awful. They're the worst. They literally haven't made a single fucking good video game. Yeah, it is what it is.
Oh, my God. Just
sad.
Full of venom and hate. After such a topic, too. Control your expectations, Vindy. It's 343.
Yeah, I know what to expect now. Meanwhile, Bungie's fucking making shithole Destiny, the worst thing in existence, but at least the guns in Destiny feel fucking good to shoot. So you know what? They've got that over 343.
All right, so Christianity arc over. I found my other god, goddess, Ichigo, a sun god. I've also finished. So how Aikatsu is structured is the first 100 episodes are like basically Ichigo's story arc, where then around episode 75 they introduced Akari, who is becomes a sort of pupil to Ichigo,
Silly
and then
lady.
after episode what?
I said silly. She's silly.
Oh yeah, yes. And then after episode 100, she becomes the main character of the show. So I am watching the Akari stuff, but I'll just talk about Ichigo's portion because I still love the show. It's very good. The show is just very fucking silly. Like, I remember in episode fucking 3 when it just fucking hit me the first time I was watching it, where the main character's like, I want a special dress. I'm gonna go see this fashion designer. And it's like, oh, the elevator. I don't know about the elevator, so I'm gonna go down this path. And it's like, oh, I'm gonna have to climb a 50 meter cliff to get there, and she just sends it, like, and it becomes a thing throughout the whole franchise of characters just being able to free climb like giant bare rock faces, like with just a tracksuit. And that's just a thing. And then in episode 12, there's a Christmas party, and one of the girls is like, man, I wish there was a Christmas tree like in America. That'd be fucking cool. And so she just takes a fucking snowmobile and goes out into the mountain, and she cuts down a fucking giant fucking tree and brings it back, and they decorate it. And it's just like, it's fucking nothing. Like, the show will just have goofy and silly things happen, and the characters will just be like, yeah. And meanwhile, I'm sitting there like, this shouldn't be real. And it's not. But it's fun as hell. Like, it just, there's just a sense I get where, the staff behind the show, whether no matter how much they give a shit, like, they're, being good, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, there was one scene where they're like, headmistress Orihime is talking about how, like, a linchpin, and the visual they represent that is there's like a folding fan, and the pin comes out and the fan collapses. It's literally like maybe a second or two of animation. It is some of the best animation I've ever seen. Like, it has weight to it. It's fucking Sakuga, and I'm just like, why are they going so hard on this scene that lasts like maybe a couple seconds? Like, there's more. The show normally does not look that well animated. Like, a lot of it the CG early on isn't great. At the point that I'm at now, it's fine, but even then, I know it gets better later. And then just the characters are really fun, and I love them all. Like, Ichigo, Aoi, and Ron are such a good trio. Ichigo is a fucking maniac. Ron is hella cute and adorable. Aoi is gay as shit and also very good. Otome is probably one of the cutest things ever. I love her so much. Like, every line out of her mouth, she's just so silly. I love her. Yurika is very fucking good, and I like how her character sort of explores, like, the idea of idols having characters, and, like, they're very clear, like, we see her real self. And another goofy moment that stands out to me is, like, she's undergoing a scandal because it turns, it gets out that her favorite food is actually like garlic ramen, and she plays a vampire character. So obviously, she's breaking her character there, and that, causes a scandal. And as the, like, headmistress and one of the teachers, fucking Johnny Bepp Sensei, who is a Chad, and he's great and he's silly. He's like fucking around with tomatoes the whole episode, and then, like, Orihime gives like a cryptic line about how, like, she's gonna have to overcome the scandal, and the scene ends, like, after she says that line, you hear the blender going of Johnny Bepp making, like, tomato juice, and, like, that's just how it ends, and it's so fucking weird, but it's so funny to me, just because it's like they decided to end this, like, they had this exposition scene, and they just make it more interesting by having, like, this character doing this thing in the background where he's making tomato juice, because it turns out he wants to make it good so that he can give it to Yurika to, like, cheer her up because she likes tomato juice because she's a vampire character and all that. And it's just like, it's so silly. The show is just so fucking goofy. I like it. And I guess especially rewatching it has been interesting because, like, I have my Aikatsu Stars video, and I'm just kind of, like, thinking about how, like, a lot of what Aikatsu Stars is doing, I think it still, like, nails it. And just, like, because, like, I feel like what the staff kind of figured out through Aikatsu, when they hit the ground with stars, they're just already building off of that and doing their own things. Like, there's just some contrasts, like how there's Starlight Academy, which feels like it's kind of like this elite school, where Dream Academy, the one introduced later, is the one more about self-producing and bringing in idols that maybe wouldn't make it or wouldn't have gotten accepted at Starlight Academy. And that's kind of inverted in Aikatsu Stars, because the main school is the one that's, like, the self-producing, pull yourself up from your bootstraps, and the antagonistic school is the elite one. And just like, there's like the way they use the sun symbolism is very different, and it's just kind of interesting retroactively seeing how Stars iterates on Aikatsu, because I did not get that kind of thing out of Aikatsu the first time, because I wasn't paying attention to it in that way, because mentioned earlier, it took a while for it to click with me. And then I literally forgot certain characters existed until even when they showed up later, I was like, who the fuck is this? But yeah, good show, silly show.
Nice.
What's up next week, brothers?
I actually genuinely have no fucking clue.
Since Craftsdwarf allowed me to Gayass again, I'll be Gayassing next week.
I have opened
Let's
the heart.
go.
Yeah. One thing I might talk about next week. I still have, so as far as finishing things, I'm probably not gonna be finishing anything new by next week, because I'm reading Bakuman, which is very fucking wordy, and I like it, but I've been trying to read 2 volumes a day, and I literally can't, because I don't have the fucking time to read 2 volumes of Bakuman and also do all the other stuff I want to do, including the Nensho reading. So next week I might I still have some stuff that I could have talked about this week, because like Hoshino Samadare or Lucifer and the Viscamera I can talk about. There's a YouTube thing I can talk about. And then there's a bunch of old stuff like manga. So I have plenty to talk about, but I don't know what I'll talk about yet.
Aside from the Gayassing, I might talk about Toriko, because I'm reading that, because you're reading it for the Nen show.
Okay.
I decided to try watching the Nen show again, so I'm actually reading what you guys are doing.
I hope we actually continue it, because I don't know, math was from the first chapter. I don't know, we'll see how it goes, but yeah, it would be, this is definitely the most I've been aware of people reading along with the Nen show, so I hope it's not another Kinnikuman. That's all I'll say. Alright, anyway, I guess that wraps out the episode.
Adios, gamers.
Thank you for listening, and goodbye.